Violette1st. 16 plus, Violette1st, bank robbery. Introduction. Hello there, welcome to another Violette1st story. This story is about the Bill being involved in a bank robbery. This story is not for the light-hearted. This gets pretty graphic pretty quickly. Plot. It is a peaceful spring day in Mount Airy, Maryland. A 52-year-old, Violette, is cooking lunch for her family. A few minutes later Violette calls for her 17-year-old son William. 1 minute later William and Violette tuck into some Kraft mac and cheese. A few seconds later a 628-pound, 58-year-old Bill walks into the kitchen. Bill then asks for lunch. Violette tells Bill they are on a budget because they are low on funds until Thursday. Bill then grabs a bowl of mac and cheese. A few seconds later Bill dumps the mac and cheese on his wife. Violette then punches Bill's jaw. A few seconds later Violette tells Bill that they are on a strict budget. Bill then asks if they can go get fast food. Violette tells Bill they don't have the money for fast food. Bill then screams very loudly. A few seconds later Bill grabs his wife's car keys. 12 seconds later Bill speeds off in Violette's SUV. William then tells Violette that their budget is about to get even tighter. A few seconds later Violette screams at the top of her lungs. Violette then sits on a bench, patiently waiting for her hippo-sized husband. 15 minutes later Violette hears her SUV. 1 minute later Violette's SUV parks in front of the house. A few seconds later Bill runs into the house with several bags. A few seconds later Violette sees a $792 purchase on her bank statement from McDonald's. Violette calls for William. A few seconds later William runs outside. A few seconds later Violette explains everything. 2 minutes later Violette and William storm into the master bedroom. Violette then sees a sea of McDonald's Big Mac boxes and fry boxes on her bed. A few seconds later Violette sees over 40 giant fountain drinks on Bill's nightstand. Bill then says he got 44 large Big Mac meals. Violette then screams her head off at Bill for ruining her budget. A few seconds later Violette sees her bank account only has $428. William then tells his father to enjoy his final meal. A few seconds later Violette and William walk downstairs. A few seconds later Bill starts eating his meal. 1 hour later Bill walks downstairs after putting on 83 pounds of weight. Violette then tells Bill he needs to figure out some way to pay back the $800 he spent on food. Bill then remembers his crime shed. A few seconds later Bill walks away. A minute later Bill walks into his top secret crime shed. 10 minutes later Bill finishes planning out a way to get the money back that he had already been planning for months in advance. A few seconds later Bill opens Google Maps to find a bank. 5 minutes later Bill decides he will target a Chase bank. Bill then starts planning out the details for his bank robbery. An hour later Bill starts writing his plans in his diary. 15 minutes later Bill sneaks into the house. A few seconds later Violette looks at Bill. Bill then tells Violette she will get her money back in a few hours. Bill then walks upstairs to his bedroom with a grinchy smile on his face. A few seconds later Bill walks into his bedroom. 10 minutes later Bill finishes changing into an outfit for his bank robbery. A few seconds later Bill puts on a ski mask with holes for his eyes and mouth. 3 minutes later Bill finishes memorizing the plan for his robbery. A few seconds later Bill sneaks to the top of the stairs. Bill then hears Violette and William walk out of the kitchen door. Bill then runs downstairs to grab Violette's car keys. 1 minute later Bill throws 37 burlap sacks into the trunk of Violette's SUV. Bill then places a machete and steel sledgehammer into the SUV. Violette then sees her husband with a black outfit. Bill then explains he is going to be getting the money in a few minutes. Violette then returns to her bidding. 5 minutes later Bill places an empty duffel bag into the SUV for weaponry. A minute later Bill throws a box of 30-gallon trash bags into the SUV. A few seconds later Bill places a few sticks of dynamite into Violette's SUV. 2 minutes later Bill places a drill on the passenger seat. Bill then walks to his crime shed. 1 minute later Bill places a bag of explosives into the SUV. Bill then puts a flamethrower into Violette's SUV. 2 minutes later Bill places the final few items in the SUV. 1 minute later Bill decides he is ready to rob a weapons shop for items to help his bank robbery. A few minutes later Bill finishes attaching a trailer to the SUV. 10 minutes later Bill speeds off after organizing his stuff for the best efficiency for his bank robbery. A few seconds later Violette sees her SUV is missing. Violette then walks inside. A minute later Violette and William watch NBC. A few seconds later they patiently wait to see if Bill will show up. Back with Bill, he is driving erratically and swerving violently weaving through oncoming traffic. 5 minutes later Bill arrives at a gas station. 3 minutes later Bill speeds off with a full tank of gasoline. 10 minutes later Bill parks the SUV in a parking lot. Bill then grabs a Glock and weaponry duffel bag. A few seconds later Bill puts his ski mask on. A few seconds later Bill runs into the weapons shop. Bill then shoots a light, while screaming that he is robbing this joint. 10 seconds later Bill starts placing deadly weapons into his duffel bag. A few seconds later a store employee calls the police. Bill then shoots the worker's heart. A few seconds later the employee passes away. 3 minutes later Bill gets into Violette's SUV when he hears police sirens and after shooting 4 more people dead. A few seconds later Bill speeds off to a bank. Bill then starts driving like a lunatic. A few seconds later Bill runs over a group of bikers, killing the 8 bikers. Bill then starts driving more erratically. 3 minutes later Bill parks in front of a Chase bank. Bill then grabs his flamethrower, trash bags, duffel bag of weaponry, duffel bag of explosives, and his burlap sacks. Bill then runs into the bank while holding a rifle. A few seconds later Bill locks the front door with chains, preventing people from fleeing. 2 minutes later Bill shoots his rifle at several security cameras. Bill then walks up to the counter. A few seconds later Bill screams that he wants all the money in the vault or else he will be taking hostages. A few seconds later the bank owner opens the vault. Bill then kills 3 innocent civilians with his machete. 1 minute later Bill starts filling his burlap sacks with money. Meanwhile, Violette and William are watching live coverage of Bill's weapons shop shoot up and robbery. Violette and William are beyond enraged at Bill. Violette then tells William that it could get a lot worse. Then a news reporter says they are just getting informed about a Chase bank robbery. Violette then runs to Bill's shed. 15 seconds later Violette sees Bill's entire plan. A few minutes later William calls the police. Back at the bank, Bill finishes filling his 6th burlap sack. A few seconds later police cars pull up to the bank, followed by several SWAT trucks and 3 FBI vans. Bill then blows up the vault. A few seconds later Bill grabs his 6 burlap sacks. 1 minute later all the sacks are on the trailer. A few seconds later Bill grabs a young adult. A few seconds later Bill puts her against his chest to prevent him from being shot. A few seconds later Bill runs out of the bank. 10 seconds later it blows up, killing 12 people. Bill then puts his hostage into the SUV passenger seat. Bill then places his duffel bags and 8 trash bags filled with body parts onto the trailer. A few seconds later Bill speeds off. Bill then tells his hostage that she will be killed if any refusal occurs. 3 minutes later Bill lights up some TNT. A few seconds later 3 cop cars explode and 5 police officers die. Bill then starts driving even faster. A minute later Bill throws a pile of spikes onto the road behind him. 3 minutes later Bill parks in front of his house. A few seconds later Bill's hostage runs for her life. A few seconds later Bill shoots her skull. Violette then sees a dead corpse next to her SUV. Bill then speeds off when he sees his wife and son. 3 minutes later Bill takes a teenager hostage to get his way. A few seconds later Bill drives away. 10 minutes later Bill gets onto an interstate. A few minutes later Bill runs into another bank with 9 burlap sacks. 10 minutes later Bill speeds off with 2 extra hostages, having killed 18 people and stuffed their body parts into trash bags, and placing his 9 burlap sacks and trash bags into the trailer. A few minutes later one of Bill's hostages jumped out of the SUV at 84 miles an hour into a ditch. A few seconds later the person runs to get the police. 5 minutes later Bill arrives at a jewelry shop. A few seconds later runs into the jewelry shop with 3 burlap sacks and his machete. 5 minutes later Bill places his burlap sacks onto the trailer. A minute later Bill places trash bags filled with the corpses of 12 civilians. A few minutes later Bill speeds off. 5 minutes later Bill sees a police blockade ahead of him. A few seconds later Bill grabs a rocket launcher. A few seconds later Bill shoots the blockade. 5 seconds later 9 police officers get killed from the explosion. Bill then speeds past the barricade. 10 minutes later Bill finishes robbing his 3rd bank. A few seconds later Bill throws 12 dead corpses and 5 burlap sacks onto the trailer. A few minutes later Bill speeds off after securing his load of money, jewelry, and dead corpses. A few seconds later one of the SUV tires exploded. Bill then starts losing control. 2 minutes later Bill parks the SUV in front of his house. Violette then sees her husband. A few seconds later Bill's 2nd hostage flees. A few seconds later Bill shoots his hostage's heart, killing her. A few seconds later Bill gives Violette $800. Violette then tells Bill she doesn't want any part of his illegal activities. A few seconds later Violette sees trash bags. Bill then proudly tells Violette that over 50 dead corpses are in those trash bags. Violette then looks at the trailer. A few seconds later William walks outside while calling the police. A few seconds later Violette sees the burlap sacks. A few seconds later 12 police cars arrive at the Anderson residence. A few seconds later Bill gets arrested. Violette then sees her SUV. William then brings an officer to Bill's crime shed. A few weeks later Bill is found guilty for committing terrorism and genocide on United States soil. A few days later Bill gets thrown into a pool of flesh-eating piranhas. The end. Day, Saturday the 28th of March. Bill kill count. 72 civilians. 14 police officers. Total kills, 86 people.